Welcome everybody to the Orange County Industrial Development Agency meeting for February 18th, 2026. I'd like to call that meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please, Phil.
Jeffrey Christ.
Here.
Dean Tambury.
Here.
Lee Benton.
Here.
Mark Green.
Here.
Dr. Vincent Oda.
Here.
We have 5 of 7 members present for staff. Bill Fioravanti, Kelly Riley, Margie Barras, Matt Dagley on audio visual, Rudy Zoda, our general counsel, and our state monitor, Brian Sanders.
Very good. Moving on to, I would note the proof of notice for this meeting is on page 2 of your packet. And moving on to minutes for the meeting of January 24th, 2026. Would anyone care to make a motion to accept those minutes?
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Lee. Discussion, corrections, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried on the minutes. Next item is my chairman's report, and I would like to report mostly on a conference by the New York State Economic Development Council that took place on February 10th and 11th. It was, Bill and I attended. It was well attended, and I felt it was notable. It was very positive towards economic development, of course, but the recognition that in many cases the incentives and the attraction are very important for a company to make a decision to move forward with a project in New York State. A number of projects were discussed. Just a couple of highlights. There was a legislative update by 2 senators and 2 assembly members. They were saying there's proposed changes for IDAs to better enable housing projects in a broader range. There was a recognition that housing needs are substantial in New York. Senator Cooney recommended New York needs to cut red tape and be more aggressive closing deals by providing incentives, which I thought was a notable comment.
Yep, he said we're losing projects, critical projects, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, Florida, et cetera, and he said incentives and shovel-ready sites are key to winning those projects.
And who is he?
He's a senator in the New York State Senate.
Okay, thank you.
He's out of the Rochester area.
Oh, is it?
Jeremy
Okay.
Cooney.
Thank you.
I missed that.
He's a Democrat out of Rochester, yeah.
Emerging technologies, no surprise, but they continue to be on the forefront in so many directions. It was noted that mixed-use projects that include housing is a neat project that ties together more than one need and more than one opportunities. What's that, Lee?
Just like Eastdale.
Yeah, there you go. Good point. It was noted the seeker revisions were described as meaningful changes. I didn't get a good handle on what they are yet. Do you know, Bill?
It was very vague in that presentation. It was like they're also talking about Paris reform, our Paris reporting system. The ABO was looking to overhaul that, but they were really light on any details. They couldn't even give you a year when it could be launched. So seeker as well, grand designs by the governor, and we all think they could be very positive, especially for housing, expediting housing approvals. But the details were very slim on details in those breakout sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something where like the state would make those changes, then correct? There's a committee in the state and they would
Yes.
make those changes?
Manufacturing had a breakout session that I attended. The bio market's really exploding, exploring health issues that carry genetic errors in people that can actually be corrected. The recognition that you could be susceptible to some particular disorder, disease that you don't even know yet, and head it off before you get it. I was trying to get a little better handle on AI, and particularly the generative AI versus the agentic AI. Does that make any sense to you, Mark?
Yes, I believe what it's saying is the difference between kind of using AI for like big number crunching versus AI that is going to turn into the Terminator, like becomes a self-aware entity. I
That's
believe that is
degenerative, yeah.
what your difference is.
They were saying there's some new packages that can help companies, even IDAs, manage better, kind of at the forefront. And I'm not sure which one of those two it is. I think it's the agentic, but I'm not sure.
I'm not sure on that.
Yeah.
Take your pick, or you
More to
or you
come.
want it done, right?
My education isn't over evidently.
No.
I went to a work session that included the Environmental Protection Agency, which is the federal environmental, a little bit like DEC in New York State. And one of the first words out of the lady's mouth was, economic development is a top priority, which I guess I'm not surprised considering it's at the federal level, but that's something I've never heard from the EPA before. She later clarified, did you hear some of that, Bill?
Yeah.
Clarified that environmental and economic development done right is a big win. And they still are certainly high priority to protect the environment, but to factor in the importance of development, I thought was kind of neat to hear. And she was a chief of staff for this region's EPA, which we were supposed to hear from Mike Martucci, and he was unable to make it, so she was his chief of staff.
Sounds pretty general, though.
Oh, very general, but she got into some detail that you can call up and explore things, including there could be some aspect related to brownfields that we might want to call up, and they actually have a consulting firm that they pay for, but prospective grant users and so forth can call up and get some guidance on how to put the pieces together, or if the pieces even fit. Is the way I took it. Do you have anything to add?
Actually, that, they were talking about that when I came in from another session,
Oh,
doing
okay.
double duty in that one, that's
Yep.
exactly what they were talking about when I went to, I missed some of those details, but.
Well, I always like to hear more specifics rather than generic terms like you
Yeah.
just described,
Yes.
or that other term, smart growth. Oh, drives me crazy.
I would
It's a great
say
buzz term though.
she had some specifics, and we have her contact information,
That's
so.
what I reached out to her a couple days ago. Yeah, or
Okay,
yesterday.
we should ask for that. That's a good point. I could give you the 2-hour session if you like, Lisa. And I would say the other big thing, which is no surprise to people around this table, is the demand for power in New York State really needs to double, partly because of the electric cars, the electric heat systems in houses, and in particular the data centers, and even the chip manufacturers, transducers.
Tremendous amount of power required. yeah.
And I don't know if you heard that part, it was said kind of quick, but, and maybe, were you in that session? One of the power, was a couple of powered ones,
I
but,
think it was.
I believe the gentleman said doubling by 2040, the total power,
Demand.
demand
Yes.
and capacity needed, which is pretty significant. And I would say more than I've heard in a long time, nuclear was said in a very
Yeah,
positive manner.
way.
Affordable, it doesn't produce carbon emission. The problem with nuclear is there's a lead time, I guess even with some of the smaller ones, I'm not quite sure why the lead time's so long. They've been on submarines, power in submarines, right, for 20 years?
Permitting and fighting the environmentalists.
Yeah.
Much longer than that, sir. Jimmy Carter was
Really?
the commander
Wow.
of a nuclear submarine.
Yeah.
So, but please, are you done, sir?
I think I am. Go ahead.
I'm gonna comment simply because we have a very late agenda. I think for me, it is a continual frustration to listen to these buzzwords and these type of things. Starting with the comment about housing. I feel like we get we get it from both sides.
Yeah, agreed.
And I've been here for 2.5, 3 years. Help me help you. Come to us with projects for housing. Come to us with, you know, I mean, it's not as if we can just go grab a hammer and nails and build housing for people. And so, you know, I've heard, you know, this continued cry from politicians that the IDA should be doing housing projects. Well, show me one we've been approached in the last 3 years.
And I've probably had conversations on about 10 prospective projects, but none have applied yet.
Yeah, so you
None of
know,
them just called us today.
and you know, there are just so many, you know, the question or the comment a while ago, a politician wanted school board members to be part of the IDA. Well, I am a school board member. And your comment about electricity, well, you know, there is a law that's supposed to be coming due that every school should have electric buses.
Yeah, that's a big.
How are we possibly going to power them?
Yeah.
Orange and Rockland Con Ed says, you can't have them, Port Jervis, because we can't hook up power for you to have them. So then who do we go
Sure.
to? And the state just keeps yelling at us, you have to get electric buses. And the other problem we have is we say, well, the problem with us is we have a lot of rural areas and those buses are too heavy to go on the bridges.
Yeah.
So what do we do?
Yeah.
Well, you have to fix it. Well, we don't control you control the roads and bridges. So to me, it's just a very frustrating scenario. All those things that are said sound good on paper, but nothing's getting done. It's the same stuff I've heard for years, and it's very, very frustrating that it seems like we're just doing the same things. You know, and you mentioned nuclear, right? Nuclear has been on subs since the late 50s, early 60s. And
Wow.
yet we can't get it done because of NABI, not in my backyard. And then, you know, EPA, and, you know, so there's so many, everyone's against each other. But everyone is saying, oh yeah, we can do all this stuff. So, you know, I'm on this board to create solutions. I wanna bring business here, I wanna bring opportunities here, I wanna make our community better. And yet I feel like it's nothing but roadblocks. And so it is a very frustrating thing. So I'm glad they're having these quote-unquote events, but it just sounds like the same.
I would just say, I sense, and interested in your comment too, Bill, that there's some recognition of exactly what you're saying, and we need to figure out how to get over it.
Well, yeah, look at the climate leadership law that was passed back by Cuomo. They passed a law with all this good sounding stuff with no regulations written down, developed nothing. And look at this year. This year, 2026, all new construction was supposed to be electric for housing. Then Hochul had to go back and change and say, you know what, we really can't do it. We really aren't prepared. Whatever. Yeah, of course you're not prepared. You're not prepared for anything. And when you make a law and then you go to like the DEC and you make up the guidelines and the rules later, cart before the horse.
Yeah.
So some of the things I was thinking of listening to Mark's comments and your comments, Lee, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to go.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah.
You know, it's a lot. You know, I don't think people realize the time that you put in, and
Thank you
it really
for saying
is
so.
a lot, and it's a great report to bring that back. We've heard from Pattern for Progress, right? Pattern for Progress. They were here about housing. How long was that? You know, and you hear it continuously, Mark. That's a great point. And we haven't seen any of it or whatever. And my last comment is that we hear them talking, and that's why I kind of asked about where the gentleman was from. He's a senator from the Rochester area. And I just hope that, Mark, that I'm just going to say this properly, is that I hope we're not the only one hitting these roadblocks, right? I mean, because are they making some of these changes in other areas in the state, and are we falling behind? And that worries me as being the Orange County portion of it. So that's kind of what I took some of what you had said, to make it as short as possible. But you know, I mean, is it happening other places and we're hitting these as well? And we know a lot of it's statewide, but are they making some of these changes in different areas, and then we're going to be losing out to opportunities that exist. So that's
One last thing, I don't know if anybody read it in the newspaper in the last couple of weeks. They were talking about with the snowfall that we've been having, which is significant, we're having winter again. somebody in Albany's idea was, well, you know what? 4 years ago, 5 years ago, they said, oh, you know, people shouldn't burn wood in their fireplaces because it produces too much smoke and too much ash to go up in the air as pollutants. They were talking about, well, people shouldn't use snow blowers anymore because of the gas engines and all the pollution that they create. And, you know, I mean,
What about snow
out of
plows?
Albany, that's not surprising, but it is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
One last thing I see on my note, there's recently been an annual report of IDAs, did you hear that?
That's the comptroller's report.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
Yeah, I usually share that.
Yeah, if you could share the link, that would be.
Sure, definitely.
Be interesting, there's some interesting numbers in there, so.
And just while you're on it, I will just touch on that. So what DiNapoli said, he said, first of all, job creation slowed in 2025 across economic development in general and IDAs in their report, and he expects a similar trend for this year. And he was emphasizing the need to keep New Yorkers in New York, especially young people.
Yeah.
Yet many are leaving because of untenable taxes, which is what we're here to try and provide relief.
Yeah.
Increase ratables and attracting them by providing short-term relief on that. So, and he talked about childcare solutions being essential to support workforce, especially to allow women to return to work. So that's something else it's important. So the last thing he said is the IDA report will show that there's a shifting focus from job creation to job retention in the state a lot. So we've done a couple of
That's a
retention
good
projects
point.
ourselves.
Yes. Thank you, Bill, and I'll roll into,
Just,
South Dakota?
Yes, I echo what Dean just mentioned
Okay.
earlier.
Yeah.
Thanking you for everything you're doing and exploring.
Oh, you're welcome.
And I may ask, I hope there are no out-of-pocket expenses on you.
My
think we
direct expenses are covered, so. thank
We
you
just
very
gave him a check for $15, I think, so that covered
Dr.
his big
Oda,
expenses.
we just approved a $35
Chick-fil-A
Chick-fil-A lunch for them on the New York State.
That wasn't
Thruway.
even me.
So don't you worry,
That wasn't
Mr.
my date there.
Mr. Dr. Oda, we've got him covered on that.
Thank you for those comments. And let's roll into the CEO report, Bill, and you had a very detailed, at my request, report to the board, which I appreciated.
Yeah, so I've tried to provide a little more detail this month, especially telling you where we are in the various projects that we've approved over the last year plus. So that's in there. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. The New York State EDC, we thought was a great conference. It's record attendance there, over 450 people. And for their winter one, that was a really great turnout. Got a chance to talk to a lot of colleagues. I probably chatted with 20 or so IDA execs that were there about some of the challenges we're facing, some of the political issues, this, that, and the other. It's so reassuring, and it feels great to have other folks that are, you know, in the same boat and being able to share best practices, ways they overcame. So I really appreciate that very, very much. EPA was great. EPA said that on brownfields, every $100,000 spent on brownfields typically creates 10 new jobs. So we have a $500,000 grant. Hopefully that results in 50 jobs, if not more. There was a session on quantum computing that was really interesting. We have a lot going on in this area. Westchester County has a huge initiative around quantum computing. They have IBM down there in Yorktown, and IBM also has one of the largest quantum computing centers in the world in the town of Poughkeepsie. I've actually visited that. And they did invite anyone that wanted to come take a look to do so. So if anyone would be interested in touring one of those facilities for IBM, love to take them up on that. See, DiNapoli, I mentioned the economic blueprint that we invested in. The report co-authored by or co-commissioned by the Business Council of New York, which Brian sits on, and New York State EDC, which, you know, is the group we're talking about here. They presented that blueprint, which you've seen it. I provided a summary to you. The highlight there was that New York State is 47th in the USA in growth. So these are, you know, various factors of regulations, high taxes, some of these other policies, energy, et cetera. So we got a long way to go. But it is encouraging to see that the governor is looking to address some of the issues raised in that report, including CEQA reform, other types of red tape. They've got to put a call out there. If you have ideas on ways we can improve red tape and such, the governor's done that. So they're looking at it. So it's nice to hear New York at least is maybe trying to respond to that, and address these. But that economic blueprint is an important piece. Let's see, Hope Knight, she talked about the new budget, a lot of focus on biotech. from drug discovery to realization, quantum accelerators, building on the Stony Brook Center that they have there, and the modernization of manufacturing, and still childcare. It seems like an issue that, you know, maybe is far from us, but it's not. It's something that impacts every area of economic development now, and our availability of the workforce. And it's something that IDAs now, we have it in our application that there needs to be some, at least addressing consideration of childcare. So it hits us all the way down. And then the ABO, again, they presented, they have a relatively new director, very different than the prior director who was very anti-IDA. This is Joshua Norkin. He's been great to deal with. I've had some really great dialogue with him. It was important to be in that session. They did talk about some issues that they see with IDAs around the state. Some enabling excess STE, so sales tax exemption beyond what was approved. Sometimes the applicants are going beyond that. They're seeing that being an issue. They have had issues with IDAs going into executive session. They actually provided a one-page that I've shared with our council and staff about some of the inadequacies in going into executive session. So that was important. Obviously, it's important to us as well. They also are seeing some issues with job deficits, which is something we've addressed here, where companies not meeting their full commitment. So that's something that you're seeing, as well as a high-profile one with Plug Power, renewable energy company in the Albany area. I don't know where that is, Bethlehem, something like that. That comes up as well. And again, the new Paris system. So that's on there. NYSERDA was another one. I just mentioned that to power New York State, you need about 60 to 70 gigawatts of power. And there are 9 new gigawatts of energy being pledged to bring online. But we're seeing these challenges, especially when the state is behind closing down some of the more traditional and fossil fuel generators. Indian Point, obviously, a nuclear facility is a huge source of power for New York City and in this lower New York, downstate New York region. That's off. Danscamer's being closed now, which is a peaker plant. Even CPV Valley, which is a newer project, a natural gas-fired electricity generator. The state isn't permitting them to utilize enough natural gas, so that's not being used to its full potential. So you're seeing where a lot of energy production is being halted, and you need more to come online because, as Jeff said, between data centers, AI, microchip manufacturing, other advanced manufacturing, we need more power, and we can't be left behind in New York State because that will impact us in terms of companies being attracted here. So that was another interesting one. So it was a great conference. Only other thing I wanted to mention is that we continue to move forward with the EPA Brownfields Assessment Grant. We've done a number of phase 1s. Now we're gonna be moving to phase 2s for certain properties like Orange County Fairgrounds, Colmar Labs. We've added a couple of new sites, which I haven't spoken to you about. The Steelway site, a riverfront site right in the border of City of Newburgh and New Windsor. We're gonna actually be taking a look at that. And then we're gonna have our first public outreach session. That's a requirement of the grant, and certainly something we're very much behind. On March 19th, I'll send you the agenda for this. March 19th from 4 to 5 p.m. in Goshen at the Emergency Services Center. That will be our first public outreach session, which is mostly high level, describing the project, describing kind of the scope of what we're looking at, and getting buy-in from county legislators, local elected officials and such. Those are our kind of our primary target for that audience. And then we'll have subsequent public outreach sessions where it's more focused on, say, Colmar Labs in Port Jervis, and we'll go over there. We'll have public sessions where people can give us input on redevelopment opportunities and ways to reimagine some of these properties. So that's another key part of the grant, is engaging the public in possible future planning or redevelopment of those sites. So that's going well. We are trying to get Michael Martucci, former state senator, to appear as head of regional director of Region 2 for the EPA. Again, we met his chief of staff and her father that happened to be the state senator.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was an interesting conversation for sure. He was very frank about some of what we encounter down here. But, so yeah, that continued to go well, and our audit is ongoing. Our auditors, I think they were here 4 days a couple of years ago, 3 days last year. They're here for 2 days. I just sat down with them for my annual interview with them about fraud. They always choose one board member. They do kind of a round robin thing. You're the guinea pig this year, so you just, we'll tell you that, Dean. They just sent you, I think today, request for their fraud interview. So that's going really well with PKF. They're only here for these 2 days, and another reason that they're able to be efficient is Kelly and Marty provided a lot of data ahead of time and access to files, so they started doing their work before they even got here. So really efficient, we're pleased, and they'll be ready for our audit committee for a draft presentation of the audit report on March 4th, I think it is, Wednesday the 4th, I'm pretty sure. 4 p.m. is our next audit committee, and they'll be presenting then. So I think that's most of it for now. Oh, last thing, I'm sorry, I did present to the relatively new Orange County Legislature. I mean, it's very new, really recomposed, very different political kind of composition of that board. So I presented to their Education and Economic Development Committee, which I typically do. Jeff and Dean appeared with me, which I really appreciate. I thought it was a very positive meeting. They are very open-minded. Of course, we've met with a number of new legislators in advance just to get to know them and them to get a little primer on the IDA before a meeting like that. But it was positive. They had a lot of discussion, a lot of questions. We had really good dialogue back and forth. So I think that's the start of a really solid relationship and an attempt to have greater mutual understanding around, especially a concept like the IDA, which is always controversial and not always well understood. So I thought it was really positive. So good stuff. Yeah, that's it for me.
I would just say, related to the county meeting later yesterday, it was basically just us on the agenda. There was a short agenda item related to agricultural districts, which are important to farms, including us, but then for, what, it was a solid hour, right?
Yeah, I went on for a little while, but.
Would say, but they seem to, you have a number of handouts explaining the basics, and then got into some fairly detailed questions, and they were respectful and had good questions, so that was good to see.
Yeah, and I also did share with them as a little background that blueprint for New York, because it's just in black and white, a study of the challenges here and why IDAs are important. So I shared a summary of that I had shared with the board, and then a link to the full report, which is like 86 pages, so I didn't want to use all of our paper. I used a lot yesterday. So that was, again, part of my presentation, so they understand this is the why with the IDA. Again, they were very understanding. I thought we had some great dialogue.
Yes,
Yeah.
yep. And related to the Brownfield meeting, our consultant on that is put together, he put the agenda together, I believe. It was quite comprehensive.
Yep.
And thank you for adjusting the date so I could be there,
Yeah,
but
pleasure.
I'd encourage board members, if it works out, to attend. It's kind of an important initiative for us this coming year. And lastly, I might just comment, and we were just speaking with Rudy about it, we have a number of projects that we have approved but haven't closed, and upon closing, that'll help our revenue a little bit, right, Rudy?
Significantly, I would
Yeah,
say, yes.
Yeah, I would say so. So, you'll have something more to talk about hopefully soon, Mark.
Right.
I'm giddy with anticipation, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for Bill or I related to our reports?
No, thank you for taking the time to do, to do what you do, because I don't know if I would do what you do.
Nice. He's fully engaged on these trips, that's for sure. So he's all in, which is much
It's
appreciated.
not all fun.
I'm not, that's what I'm saying. I can't imagine. I think my head would explode, quite frankly. So thank you.
And related to the audit, thank you, Kelly and Marty. I know it's a intense time. Obviously, you're doing a very nice job, and it helps make it go smoother. The requirements for record keeping and bookkeeping and auditing are seem like it's extreme today. Okay, moving on, speaking of Finance Committee, Mark, please, page 18 in your packet.
Yes, not quite as light as the FC, but not a lot happening really. Honestly, we didn't have any projects closing, so our revenue this month was $162 in checking interest. We do have a CD coming due next month, so you will see an increase there. Really, most of our expenses are right in line with what has been occurring from previous months. The only little standout is that we have a double payment of rent on the buildings simply because of a timing issue with January and February. So they're really, our net for the month is, a negative $103,000, simply because the CD hasn't come due and also the projects haven't closed as much as we'd like. Real quickly on the vendor list, we have our expenses that are going on as far as our efforts to try and move forward with the IDA. But nothing out of line there. And as I mentioned, the CD comes due next month for $2.5 million. And so we'll have more to talk about revenue at that point. That really was it. The committee recommended approval of all the vendor payments and financials.
And to that point, for the January 2026 financials and the January and February payables for 2026, I would suggest a motion to approve as the committee recommended.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Lee, second by Dean. Questions on any of that? There's a bit to look at there. Hearing no questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. That brings us to revised policies, please, Bill.
Yeah, so, as we said in OCFC, we have reviewed 11 of our policies on both OCFC and OCIDA side. Through governance, we approved in December 7 of them, revised versions of those policies. Now we have the remaining 4, which is our procurement policy, our disposition of property policy, our investment policy, and our defense and indemnification policies. We basically added the cover page that the Chair of Governance, Linda Muller, had kind of guided us with. So we have those cover pages added to these policies, and a few other changes that you see. What's printed in front of you shows very few red line changes from General Counsel. We did approve these for OCFC and looking for your adoption of these 4 revised policies tonight.
Would anyone care to make that motion to adopt those revised policies? By Mark Green, second to that motion. By Doc Oduck, thank you. Questions, comments on those policy revisions? And again, the governance did recommend approval of these at the, what meeting date was that? Was that December or
It
January?
was January.
Okay, last month.
Yep, January 21st.
Hearing no questions, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried on the policies. And that completes our agenda, unless anybody has something else we should have under other business. Would anyone care to make a motion to adjourn? By Mark, second. By Dean, and before I call for the vote, thank you all for being here, and quite a few good things going on, and hopefully we get some closings under our belt sooner than later. And we have some neat projects on the horizon, so. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Meeting adjourned at 5:39. Thank you, everybody.